Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special event tonight hosted by the Dallas County GOP. We welcome you. Nice to have you here. We're going to kick it off as we always do, and we're talking about youth tonight, our young folks who are getting involved in the Republican Party in this presidential campaign. Let's kick it off with Dowling Catholic Jr. J.J. McLaughlin to sing Please Rise, our national anthem.
Thank you. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Nice job. Yeah, if you remember, JJ's dad, McLaughlin, very active in the Republican Party over the years. Thank you, JJ. Okay, we're going to get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring her on. Here is the chair of the Dallas County Republican Party. She's going to introduce you to a few of the folks today and some of the young folks. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Kelly Koch.
We will not be serving this tonight, okay? I'll tell you what, I was going to bring my pillow. Mike Lindell, I think my whole family sleeps on a Mike Lindell My Pillow. Bed Bath & Beyond, go broke or go home, okay? So you wonder what's going on in our country. We have over 70 people here tonight under the age of 30. And, right. All these young kids, I love it. So Dallas County, people think, well, what's going on in Dallas County? Well, first of all roads to the White House lead through Iowa. But yes. They also lead through Dallas County, and the average age in Dallas County is 35. So all the candidates that are coming through my county, they better wake up. There's young people. The platform is talking about young ideas, freedom of speech, the transgender reassignment issues, wokeism. How about the national debt? You know, we're on this side of the hill. How about the other kids that are going to get the national debt? So tonight, geared to them, and Vivek campaign is one of the youngest millennial presidential candidates ever. I asked him, are you old enough to run for president? And he said, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, I am. He's 37 years old. He won my heart. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. So he can go toe-to-toe with Fauci, right? Right. He's also got a law degree from Harvard, and he is celebrating and cultivating the young people. So tonight, I'd like to introduce you to some rising stars in our city. Dylan Engelbrecht, Dallas Drake College Republicans. We've got Kendall Zylstra, Drake Law Student Republican Club, and Jose Reyes is a superstar in Dallas for the Perry Project and his friend Mario, and Thomas Bean is with the Bull Moose Club. They're going to hear a little bit about these kids and what they're doing in the state.
Hello, Dallas County. My name is Dylan Engelbrecht, and as Kelly said, I am the chair of the Drake College Republicans. As we're finishing up with finals this week, I see students across the board getting excited for the Iowa caucuses, welcoming candidates across the board to Iowa, and more importantly, continuing to be that conservative voice on campus that we so desperately need. continuing that anti-woke message.
Hi, I'm Kendall Zylstra. I am the chair of the Drake Law School Republicans. So together with Dylan and I, we're working to kind of push the needle a little bit there at Drake. Especially in the legal community, things tend to be quite liberal right now, if you haven't quite noticed. And so we have a core group of about 30 to 35 future lawyers who are trying to push for conservative results and conservative ideologies. And ultimately, it just acts as a point for us to just get together and share our common beliefs. One thing that I would like to talk about just briefly is oftentimes I get asked, what are young people looking for in candidates, in leaders? And I think one of the big things that we need to talk about is people who not only can talk a conservative talk, but walk a conservative walk. And what that means is not just saying, hey, I'm conservative, or I believe X, but actually getting it done. And so for me as a young person, I'm looking for leaders who are willing to step up to the plate and get things done. So appreciate you having me.
My name is Thomas Bean. I'm with the Bull Moose Club. We're an organization of under 40 Republicans here in the Des Moines metro area. Our mission and our goal is to organize a conservative group of young Republicans to get involved in politics at the local level, whether that be school boards, city councils, or the state legislature. It's important that the younger generation takes responsibility and gets involved early because we're going to be fighting for this country well into the future here. So if you would like to find us or have anyone that would be interested in joining, we have a website and we're on Facebook, so please feel free to reach out. We have a number of events put together. We've hosted Vivek Ramaswamy already and Senator Tim Scott, so we provide an opportunity for folks to ask questions with the potential candidates as well as some local politicians as well. So thank you very much.
Oh, apologies. Hi, my name is Jose Reyes. I'm part of the Lincoln Highway Young Republicans. I'm here with Dallas County GOP and representing the Perry Project Strong. So with the Perry Project, we're trying to reach out to the Hispanic community, those that are part of our communities that help us, those hardworking ones, you know, those that a lot of us are willing to represent, and it's important that they understand what's happening, that they understand that here in the state of Iowa, we have the great opportunity of seeing all the candidates that are running to become president, and a lot of them don't know. So we're here to hopefully connect that gap and educate them. So I'm gonna say in Spanish, I apologize, but para toda la comunidad, estamos aquí en el estado de Iowa, queremos educar a nuestra gente para que sepan lo que está pasando en el país.
So I'm just translating. So he just wants to know, let the Hispanic community that we are here, we are privileged to be able to come out here and be able to be an opportunity to be able to educate some of our Hispanic members in the community here in Iowa.
Aquí en el estado de Iowa tenemos la oportunidad de ver todas las personas que están pasando para ser presidentes y nosotros poder escoger. Es un privilegio estar aquí en el estado de Iowa.
Here in Iowa, we have the opportunity, the privilege to be able to see every candidate that's running for the presidency. And it's here that we are able to come and be able to partake and have the privilege to be able to hear their opinions in each matter.
Así que estamos aquí juntos para hacer un mejor mañana y unirnos porque hay fuerza en la unidad.
So we are here to hopefully be able to offer a better future and be able to unite, since there is a better future when we unite.
Dios bendiga a Estados Unidos.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. One thing I have to always speak up about the Hispanic population in Dallas County. We've got a relationship working with them, and in talking to them, it's about an 800-person community in Perry, Iowa, and they are very, very conservative, but they don't know that, okay? They're pro-2A. They're very big pro-family. They love their kids. They want good schools. They want lower inflation. They want to be able to afford groceries. They want to do the right thing with Back the Blue. The number one issue that we have found in Dallas County that they are furious about is the open border. Their parents and grandparents had to come over legally, learn the Constitution, 3 branches of government, learn the pledge, civic involvement, and they don't feel it's fair that it's an open border policy. So these new young conservatives that are Hispanics, they're going to help us and try to change. And I told them, boy, take a look at what's going on TV right now of what's happening down south. So we've got a big chore ahead of us. Tonight, I also want to represent one of our grassroots leaders. I'm fortunate that he's a Dallas County guy, so we've kidnapped him into our county. Oliver Bardwell is standing next to me, and I'm going to just read something about him. He looks like ZZ Top. Yes, but he is way more talented. Iowa Bardwell is the founder of Iowans for Freedom, a best-selling author, host of a podcast called The Freedom Factor, from medical freedoms to religious freedoms and parental rights. I love that. He's been working diligently since 2020 to preserve our rights and liberties here in Iowa. You may have been to his rallies. He's very busy at the Capitol. In fact, he texts me how many bills are going to get passed, and then I read about it the next day, and I'll tell you what, the House and the Senate are moving things along. It's amazing. He loves his family, he loves freedom, and now I welcome, he's on the Dallas County Central Committee. He's one of ours, Oliver Bardwell.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. Hey, let's give her a big round of applause and all the Dallas County volunteers who helped make this happen. Yes, exactly. Hello, Dallas County, Iowa. So this is a rally, so I'm going to ask something of you. If you love freedom, say yes. Yes. If you love freedom, say yes. Yes. What do you love? Freedom. What do you love? Awesome. That is why we're here, isn't it? Because we love freedom. The freedom to live our lives without being persecuted for our wholesome Iowa values. The freedom to speak our minds without censorship. The freedom to raise our children to believe in the American way of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Freedom is a fundamental human right ingrained in the very fabric of our nation and into the very fabric of our being. Our founding fathers believed in this principle so deeply that they were willing to risk their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to secure it for themselves and for future generations. As we gather here today, I think it's crucial to remind ourselves of the brave men and women who throughout history have fought for freedom. They showed us that freedom is not given, but it's earned through hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice. As we gather here today, we remember the words of JFK, who said, "The most powerful single force in the world is neither communism or capitalism. It's neither the H-bomb nor the guided missile. It's man's eternal desire to be free and independent." Yes. And we remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "You must demand freedom, for it will not be given freely." And he reminded us that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And let us not forget the wisdom of Sandra Day O'Connor, who emphasized that as citizens, we need to learn how to be part of our democracy, how to express ourselves, and that every single one of us can make things happen. Today, we want to honor our beloved governor and our freedom-loving legislators for all the hard work they've done this session and for making things happen. Give it up for our legislators. Give it up for our governor. When Iowans demanded change, they not only listened, but they took decisive action. Even in the face of vicious personal attacks, they stood firm. They prevailed. We prevailed. Freedom prevailed. My fellow Iowans, let us renew our commitment to the cause of freedom. True commitment requires personal sacrifice because the price of freedom is high. We must never forget our freedoms were paid for with the bitter tears and blood shed by the generations of those who came before us. Their sacrifice carries with it an often overlooked conditional requirement, a directive to be passed from one generation to the next. It's stamped in the very DNA of this great state. You may have heard it without even realizing its simple yet powerful message. It simply reads, "Our liberties we prize, and our rights we will maintain." These words convey a clear message to all future generations that it is our duty to protect and preserve what we have been given. Ronald Reagan once said, "Freedom is always just one generation from extinction." And this generation, right now, in this moment, this is our time to fight for freedom, our time to raise our voices, and our time to take a stand. Not everyone can run for office or spend their time lobbying at the Capitol. However, every Iowan has a sacred duty to contribute to the preservation of freedom in some way. Whether you choose to donate, to volunteer, or simply to use your voice, your contribution is essential to ensuring that we pass the torch of liberty to the next generation, shining brighter than ever before. If you love freedom, say yes. Yes. If you love freedom, say yes. Yes. May God bless you all. God bless Iowa. God bless the United States of America. And one last time, what do you love? Freedom.
Next I'm going off script on this guy. He's one of our own, Dallas County. His nickname, see if you can guess this, nickname is Freedom Fighter, Dad Fighting for Kids. Hint, he's a Dallas County resident. He's the former Iowa Senate president. He's been instrumental in fighting for our liberties, medical, big push on education. And he is committed to my county, Dallas County, of ramping things up, young people. He's here with a bunch of little kids tonight, teaching them about what it is to be involved in the caucus. Ladies and gentlemen, our own Dallas County, Jake Chapman.
Good evening, Dallas County. How are we? Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for all of the support you gave me over these past 10 years that I was able to serve in the Iowa Senate. It was an honor of a lifetime and truly a privilege to be able to represent you down at the Capitol. You know, sometimes elections don't go the way you'd hoped, and that happened with me. And so I found myself in a position of what now? What do I do now? And I remembered back to my desk on the floor of the Iowa Senate, and I had two quotes over my voting machine that I would look at every single time I took a vote. And one of those quotes, I won't share the other, but the one quote I want to share with you tonight is that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And when I look at what's happening at the federal level, what's happening with the current administration, the weaponization of bureaucratic agencies to go after Americans, I knew I couldn't stand on the sideline. And so I had the opportunity to meet with Vivek, rhymes with Jake. He always says it's Vivek like cake, but friends of Jake, Vivek. And you know, I had an opportunity to meet with him, and I realized this is a special individual. This is someone who I know my kids can look up to, that he can be a role model for them. And so it is important that we have the right people in the right positions at the right time, right? Look at what's happened in this state. Because of the right people in the right positions at the right time, we've expanded liberty in this state. We have secured and safeguarded our Second Amendment rights. Something I started last year that I was so proud to see the legislature pass was removing obscene material from our schools. supporting and defending our brave men and women who stand in that thin blue line to protect Americans, to protect Iowans. We will always support and defend our law enforcement. And it's last but not least, and perhaps the most important, our founders made no mistake when they said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without life, there is no liberty, and without life and liberty, there is no pursuit of happiness. This state has done more to protect life, to pass a heartbeat bill, to pass a 72-hour wait period, and hopefully, with the Iowa Supreme Court, we'll actually have the heartbeat bill go into effect in this great state. We must protect the most innocent amongst us. So with that, there's one thing. Vivek is an outsider. I have had 10 years in politics, and I'm more convinced now than ever that we do need an outsider coming in to clean up the mess that's going on, okay? But he's actually done something that over the 10 years I haven't been able to do. And that is, he was able to go on the left side of media, debate Don Lemon, and within days, Don Lemon is fired. Now that's a resume. So let me just conclude with this. I appreciate what Oliver was saying about freedom. Freedom. The belief that our rights come from God, not from a king, not from government, but from God. That is a fact. Amen. We have an opportunity to support an individual that is courageous, who's going to speak boldly for truth, unapologetically call out, boys are boys, girls are girls, boys don't belong in girls' bathrooms. That's just truth. And we don't need to be apologetic for speaking truth. That's why I signed up with Vivek. And I'm going to ask you one thing tonight. If during the course of this event, you get convicted as I have with Vivek, take a picture with him. I'm sure he's going to stay afterwards and mingle. Take a photo. Go to his bus, sign the bus, take a photo, and put it on social media. And talk about what you heard tonight and what resonated with you tonight. That is my one and only ask for you tonight. God bless all of you. Let me close with this one quote. Because oftentimes we find ourselves in a position where we think, does it really matter? Does my vote matter? Does the impact I have, does that social media post matter? Just remember, I am only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And what I can do, that I ought to do, and what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I shall do. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless this great state of Iowa.
Awesome, Thank you. Thank you. This next lady is a rock star. Kathy Barnett, I never knew her. So she popped on my phone and wanted to start talking. Little did I know, she is the National Grassroots Director and Advisor to Vivek Ramaswamy presidential campaign. She's an author, a veteran, former adjunct professor of corporate finance, wife, homeschooling mama bear, and a 2022 Republican candidate for United States Senate in Pennsylvania. All right, she should have won. Kathy defied tremendous odds in her most recent campaign for the open U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania, going up against an unprecedented smear campaign, big money. She ran a formidable race and surged in the last few days. Having spent less than $2 million to run her entire campaign, Kathy was in a statistical tie for first place, and ultimately, secured over 330,000 plus Pennsylvania votes. Who do we have in Pennsylvania with the United States Senator? Fetter. I mean, it's a disaster. This girl should have been in that seat. She is a veteran. She's a veteran, and she is now my friend. And the inside story on her is, I said, she needs to move to Iowa because she loves our state. Kathy Barnett.
Yay! Woo! I love coming to Iowa. Oh, I love it. Let me tell you, I was here last week at your National Day of Prayer. I cried like a baby. Did any of y'all go to that? I cried like it was anointed, wasn't it? To see your legislators calling on the name of Jesus. I'm from Pennsylvania. We elected Fetterman. So you begin to understand why I was sitting there saying, Lord, what must we do as a nation to sweep this across our country? I love our country. I love our country, but she is in trouble. Starting tonight, I think it ends, Title 42, and people we don't know, people we did not invite in, people we don't know where they're going, we don't even know if they like us or not, are going to just flood through our country. And what are our politicians doing at the federal level? Say it again. They are on TV getting their 5 minutes of fame and telling you to go donate to them, right? We deserve better. This is the greatest country that has ever existed, but she is in trouble. You know, I believe there is such a thing as truth. You have a lot of people like, well, what is truth? My truth, your truth. Listen, there is truth, and then there's everything else, right? I believe no one has the market cornered on truth. I believe no one knows absolute truth, but I believe it is our job to go seek it out. That's our job. You're going to hear my friend and my boss, Vivek. I have the wonderful privilege of walking alongside him, a man of integrity, a man who is not only seeking truth, but who is out here speaking truth. It's our job to listen, to learn, and to figure some things out. We in the Republican Party, we love talking about our founding fathers, don't we? I love them. Praise God for them. When it was on their time, on their watch, they got the job done, didn't they? But guess what? They're dead now. True story. And now it's on your watch. It's on your watch. What are you going to do about it? When it was their turn to stand and defend and to create the most powerful document, the U.S. Constitution that has ever been written, they rose to the challenge, recognizing that they could lose their lives. And many of us don't even want to acknowledge the fact that there's only two genders, right? But they were willing to sacrifice it all if they had to. It's now on our watch. What are you going to do about it? I invite you to listen to my friend. I'm so honored to have met your governor. She's amazing, isn't she? Y'all are blessed. If you don't know it, come visit me in Pennsylvania. Y'all are blessed and highly favored as a nation. But praise the Lord. So get ready. Open your eyes, open your ears. That is my prayer, that God will open up the eyes of your understanding and that he will open up the eyes of your faith, because I believe our country is worth it. I believe our country is worth us getting uncomfortable and doing the hard things and just speaking truth. Thank you so much. Blessings.
Kathy, thank you very much. Good job. We're on time, we're on budget. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend. She's a mother, she's a grandmother, your governor of the state of Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds.
Let's make sure I've got some down here. Thank you all for being here. It's a great turnout. Congratulations, Dallas County. Kelly, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you so much. This is an awesome turnout. It's incredible to see all of the young people here. Let's wave and get a round of applause for the young people that are here who are motivated and energized to really take back this country. So thank you for being here and all that you do. I want to also give a shout out to Royal Flooring. First of all, thank you for being a small business owner here in Iowa. We appreciate that so much. And we really appreciate you opening up your facility once again so we can continue to have really great conversations with the candidates that are traveling through our state to run for the highest office in the land. So we really appreciate you opening up your facility so that we can do that. So hey, I am so fortunate tonight to have the opportunity to welcome to the freedom-loving state of Iowa, right? A man who is shaking things up, and he is asking for no one's permission to do it, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy. You know, so, you know, caucus season is here, and Iowans truly are meeting with all the candidates. They're asking some really tough questions. You know, they want to know whether these candidates have truly the moral convictions to do the right thing when in really hard times and when it matters. They want to make sure that they'll stand their ground if we have another COVID or anything similar to that. Will they stand up and put the interest of the American people over, you know, the chatter of the pundits? Will they have the resolve that we need to make the bold and tough decisions, to be unapologetic about what it's going to take to turn this country around after 4 years of President Biden? That's the profile of a candidate that's going to beat this current president. And really, it's probably the most important thing that we're looking for when we talk about making sure that we elect somebody that can ultimately beat President Biden. You know, this is a president that has failed us at the border. It is unconscionable what we see happening at the southern border. It is intentional, and it is a dereliction of duty. He has a constitutional responsibility to protect this country and Americans, and it is unconscionable what we see happening down there. He has failed to protect our skies. He's failed to protect our pocketbooks. And I'm telling you, every day I wake up and say, what insane thing is this president gonna do that flies in the face of common sense? And he does it on a daily basis. Just a complete disconnect with the reality of what's happening in this country. You know, this is a president and administration that divides us by race. They treat parents like terrorists. They locked our kids out of school for over 2 years. And, you know, the effects that that's gonna have, not in Iowa. We were one of the first states to get our kids back in school. We kept our kids in the classroom. But think about other kids across this country and what they've been subjected to. They have sidelined women and are trying to erase us by allowing men to participate in women's sports. Women, step up. We are not going to take this anymore. It's insane. It is insane what is happening. All the while, and we've seen this through COVID, and every policy that they put in place and the actions that they're taking, they are stripping away our freedoms at will. And you know, it is times like this that I'm so grateful that our founders gave us federalism, because it gives states like Iowa the opportunity to really push back against the insanity that we're seeing in Washington, D.C. You know, I'm proud to say that we just finished an unbelievable legislative session, and we have been on a roll for the last couple of years. In Iowa, we put parents in charge of their children and their children's education. We passed the boldest school choice plan in the country. We have set in place a school choice revolution, and we have made sure that we have educational freedom for everyone, not just those kids or those families that have the money to afford it. We've banned irreversible transgender surgeries on our kids. They are not experiments. There is not a redo on this. I am proud to say that in Iowa, we actually made government smaller. You know what? You can do it. You can't just talk about it. We cut 21 agencies from my cabinet. And that should equate to about a $215 million savings over 4 years. We have eliminated 513 unfilled positions. And hopefully we've set an example of what other governments can do to start to be more efficient in how they deliver services and really, rein in government so that we can continue to reduce the tax burden on hardworking Iowans. And we wrapped up our session. We made stricter penalties for people that are pushing the deadly fentanyl in our kids in this state, and we're going to continue to go after the impact that open border and fentanyl is having on our children. And we wrapped up the last couple weeks, or the last couple days, we did it actually in a couple days, we were able to deliver property tax relief to Iowans. So I can tell you, with great certainty, we're not done. We're going to come back and we're going to continue to reduce taxes and continue to work on property taxes. So stay tuned. There's a lot of momentum happening in our state, and there's a lot of other things that we're working on. But I think, the thing that I'm most proud of is I think, Republicans, not only in Iowa but across the country, are really showing an alternative to the failed leadership of this administration. And that alternative is what I think America deserves to see on the ballot in 2024. So over the next several months, I'm going to be welcoming all of the Republican presidential candidates to Iowa. We're going to, help work with them and showcase them and give Iowans the opportunity to talk to them. And every one of them brings something different to the table. But one of the things that I really respect about Vivek is his passion for restoring our national identity. His understanding that if we don't return to our faith in God, our Constitution, and truly individual excellence, that our country will cease to exist as we know it. He's been dubbed as the godfather of the anti-woke movement, which that is good. We need somebody that's willing to stand up to what we see happening. It's the indoctrination that's taking place is unconscionable. And the other thing I'm very interested in and look forward to working with him on is the anti-ESG crusader. So he's paying attention and has some ideas to address that as well. He's not afraid to stand up to the media. He's not afraid to stand up to liberal corporations. He's not afraid to stand up to China. And he's not afraid to stand up to government bureaucracy. And those are all things that I think we need to have somebody in charge that can do that. So whoever we nominate, that's the kind of resolve that we're going to need to turn this country around. So are we fired up? Are we ready to hear from Vivek himself? Okay, let's give him a big old warm round of applause for Vivek Ramaswamy. Woo!
Thank you, guys. Thank you. It's good to be here. I love it. I love you too. I love that. Thank you. So, listen, tonight, I'll make a promise to you. We're not going to be angry tonight. Tonight, we're going to start a little curious. Okay, I'm going to tell you, it's like a mystery story. Treat it that way with me. Okay, we're going to tell a little mystery story, and then we're going to get to the heart of what's actually happening. The mystery story is that we see these different cults popping up in America right around the same time. We have one cult of racial wokeism in America that says your identity is based on the color of your skin. That if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged. That if you're white, you're privileged. No matter who you are, your economic background or your upbringing, your race governs what you can achieve in life. Don Lemon believed in this cult when he sat across the table from me at CNN, saying that I couldn't express a particular opinion if I wasn't of the right race. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of the Squad, she says it well when she says that we don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice, end quote. I don't fit her description of what counts as a brown voice, but there's something really interesting there. The interesting move is it says that when your race goes from being about your skin color to being about the content of ideas you're allowed to espouse, then any disagreement with those ideas automatically makes you a racist. And there's no greater damnation in modern America than to be a racist. So when given the choice between pledging allegiance to this new cult and being tarred with that scarlet R, everyday Americans are choosing to bend the knee. And that's what creates this new culture of fear in our country. Fear of losing your jobs, fear of your kids getting a bad grade in school, fear of becoming a pariah in your own community. So that's the first of these interesting cults that's popped up at this point in American history. Now, right around that same time, we see the rise of a second cult. At the same time, this is the cult of radical gender ideology, of transgenderism. The LGBTQIA plus movement. There's so many letters, they just put a little plus at the end. And think about this cult. This cult says that the sex of the person you're attracted to is hardwired on the day you're born. It had to be to count as a civil right. But at the same time, it says that your own biological sex now is totally fluid over the course of your entire life. You can't believe these two things at once if you're operating according to principles of logic. But if you're operating according to a cult-like belief system, you can believe these things at the same time. And then it makes the same move as the first one. Well, actually, after Peter Thiel spoke at the RNC convention that nominated Trump in 2016, the leading LGBTQIA plus magazine said that he is not gay because he does not represent the gay voice. So you're seeing a pattern now. Then we get to the third cult. This one looks like it's here to stay unless we do something about it. We're going to do something about it. That is the climate cult in America, which says that we have to, at all costs, abandon carbon emissions here at home while completely turning a blind eye to shifting those carbon emissions to places like China. And then it says, even though we're so against carbon emissions, we're also against nuclear energy, which is the best known form of carbon-free energy production to mankind. It really is just a hard fact, but they're against that too. Why? Because nuclear energy might be too good at solving the supposed clean energy crisis. So I could go on all night with the mystery story. We could go to the COVID religion, we could go to the globalism religion, but the real question to ask is what the heck is going on in our country right at the same time? You think it's a coincidence that we see the rise of these different cults? It is not. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. What's really going on is that we are in the middle of a national identity crisis in America today. It's true. I'll tell you, I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I'm the first millennial ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you something as a member of my generation. I'll teach you something about us. I think it's true about all of us. It's definitely true about us millennials. We are hungry for a cause. We're hungry for purpose and meaning and identity. At a point in our national history when the things that used to fill that void, faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. That leaves a black hole of a vacuum in its wake. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when poison fills the void. It almost doesn't matter what the poison is. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, globalism. We could go on. They're just symptoms of our deeper hunger for meaning. All of us do, especially young people in this country do. We hunger to be part of something bigger than ourselves, yet we cannot even answer what it means to be an American. You try asking somebody my age, what does it mean to be American today? You get a blank stare in response. What I see in the country is we human beings, all of us here, all of us Americans right now, we're like a bunch of blind bats flying around in some cave, trying to figure out where we are, lost in the darkness. The way a bat figures out where it is, it doesn't have eyes. It sends out sonar signals, right? It bounces off something that is fixed, something that doesn't move. It comes back and says, this is where I am. That's what we human beings do. We send out a signal and it bounces off a pillar of truth, my family, the two parents who brought me into this world, the children who I brought into this world. That is true. That is real. That bounces back and tells me this is where I am. Send out a signal, it bounces off my belief in this nation, that I am a citizen of this nation, not some nebulous global citizen somewhere else, that I'm a citizen of the United States of America, that means something to me. That is real, it is true, it bounces back and tells me this is where I am. I send out a signal, it bounces off of my belief in God, my faith. It is real, it is true. That it means something to me, it bounces back and tells me this is where I am. Bounces off my hard work to create something in the world that did not exist, that I am proud of, that is real, that is true. That bounces back and tells me this is where I am. What happens when those things disappear? We send out these signals and then nothing comes back. That is why we're lost in the abyss. This is a problem in our country. That is what's responsible for the mental health epidemic, the epidemic of depression, anxiety, social insecurity. That is what causes young people to want to go to Ben & Jerry's and order a cup of ice cream to satisfy their moral hunger with some social justice sprinkles on top, without realizing you can't satisfy a moral hunger with fast food. We want the real thing. That's what we're hungry for. You see, this is a problem, but it is also our opportunity in the conservative movement right now to step up, let's level up and fill that void with the vision of American national identity that runs so deep that it dilutes the woke poison to irrelevance. That is how we win. I am done running from something. We are running to something. That is the future of our movement. It is where we are going. The left is good at this. They will fill that void with something. Race, gender, sexuality, climate. If that's what they say, we have a different answer. We talk about the individual, the family, the nation, and yes, God. These are true pillars that satisfy our actual hunger. So what does it mean to be an American? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. To me, it means you believe in the ideals. You got that? Is that a Constitution? Copy of the Constitution I'm seeing right there? Declaration of Independence and Constitution, the best known governing documents, mission statements for a country in human history. Beats the Magna Carta in my view. It means answering what it means to be an American, means reviving the ideals in that document that we set into motion 250 years ago. It means, thank you, that you believe in ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence, that we get ahead in this country, not on the color of our skin, but on the content of our character and our contributions. And that is why I will end affirmative action in America. It is a cancer on our national soul. Thank you. Means you believe in ideas like the rule of law. That if you're like my parents, you get to come to this country legally through the front door, follow the rules, and you know what they did? They paid their taxes. They raised 2 kids. Both of us went on to found companies that helped thousands of Americans. They taught us that the good things in life, entering a marriage, having children, these things involve a sacrifice, but you can make that sacrifice if you know what you're sacrificing for. We should be open to more legal immigrants like them. But that also means saying no without apology to anyone whose first act of entering this country breaks the law, because that is what it means to be American. And that is why I'm not going to talk about building some wall. We are going to use the U.S. military not to secure somebody else's border in God knows where, but to secure our own southern border, because that is what it means to have a military that serves our country. Means you believe in this radical idea that our founding fathers had 250 years ago, a radical dream that I have as a citizen today, that the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, not a managerial bureaucracy that runs the show today. And that is why if you put me in that White House and I can't work for the federal government and collect a paycheck from you all for more than 8 years, which I think is a good thing, then neither will any of those federal bureaucrats who report into me either. We're going to replace the civil service protections with 8-year term limits for the bureaucrats that were never elected in the first place. That's what it means to live in a constitutional republic with 3 branches, not 4. And by the way, when you have a government agency that goes so far off the rails that should have never existed in the first place, you don't just tinker around the edges by putting a nice enough person, Betsy DeVos or whoever else, on top. It means when the U.S. Department of Education should not exist, then that means you do the thing that you should have done a long time ago. We will shut it down, because that is what it means to be an American. 3 branches of government, not 4. So these are the basic rules of the road: free speech, open debate, merit, rule of law, self-governance over aristocracy. These aren't partisan ideas. I don't talk about Republicans and Democrats anymore. I'm done with that. Talk about whether you are pro-American. Do you believe in the ideals that set this nation into motion? Are you willing to make a sacrifice for them? Or are you fundamentally anti-American? Do you wish to apologize for the existence of a nation founded on these ideals? That exists today, but that's not just 50-50 anymore. It's 80-20 in our favor. Half the 20 are people younger than me that never learned those ideals in the first place. We bring them along too. That is why I think we have an opportunity to win the 2024 election in a landslide like Ronald Reagan did in 1980. It is up to us to stand up and actually deliver it. All right, so thank you for that. So I want to get to an announcement that I wanted to make tonight. We've been saving it for here in Dallas County. Talking about reviving national identity. Thank you, Governor Reynolds. That is what this whole campaign is all about. But we're going to have to be willing to do the hard things to get there too. We're not just going to sit there and preach to the next generation, to my kids' generation, and tell them why they should be proud of this country, because right now they're just not. 16% of Gen Z Americans say they're proud to be Americans. Last year, we had a 25% recruitment deficit in our military because young people do not want to serve a country that they are taught to hate. We're going to have to think big to find our way out of this decline in national pride for the next generation. If we let that slide go, that's a generation lost. We don't have a generation left to lose in this country. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is ambitious. Some of you will not agree with it. That is okay. We are founded on free speech and open debate. We're going to have Q&A, and I will stay till we take any of the questions that we need to take. But I think that if we're going to pass on civic pride to the next generation, we can't anymore just be a country that you inherit. We have to become a country that we all have a stake in creating, in building together. Tell you, that's what it means, civic duty. We don't live in a direct democracy. We live in a constitutional republic. And that means something. It is in that Constitution, in your hands right there, Article 4, Section 4. It's what Jethro told Moses, okay? what will create a representative form of government. That's what they were thinking when they wrote Article 4, Section 4. We are a representative constitutional republic. That means it comes with civic duties. So let me tell you something. In 1971, when we lowered the voting age to 18 in this country, we did it in the context of a draft. We had a military draft that said if you were 18 years old and you were old enough to serve the country, then by God, you should be old enough to vote. And I stand by that logic. It was the right thing to do. I do not stand by a draft today. We have no reason for one, but it was civic duty back then that tied the privileges of citizenship, the ultimate privilege, the right to vote, to say that if you want to play in the game, you got to have skin in the game. When I think about young Americans today, I see a deficit of national pride because I see a deficit of duty. You don't value that country you inherit. You will only value, you have a country you have a stake in building and knowing something about. And so that is why today I'm announcing my support for a new amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That amendment would raise the voting age in this country from 18 to 25, but still tell you that you can vote at 18 if you either do service to this country 6 months in the military or 6 months as a first responder, or else at least pass the same civics test that we make an immigrant pass to actually become a voting citizen in this country. We're gonna have to think big. We're gonna have to be ambitious. This problem is not gonna solve itself on its own. I think it is a problem that young people don't vote enough in this country. It's less than a quarter of people in that age bracket voted just in the last midterm cycle. I think it might be substantially lower than that if we get the actual numbers. But if you make it something that you actually have to earn, you value it even more. It's human nature, it's psychology. And I think that if we're gonna ask an immigrant who comes to this country to pass that civics test, to know something about the Constitution, how many amendments there even are? 27. Who are the three authors of the Federalist Papers? John Jay, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton. These are the kinds of questions we ask immigrants who come to this country, as I think we should, to become full citizens of this country. I will stand by and wait for why we shouldn't ask an 18-year-old to at least know the same thing, and if not that, to at least serve the country because you value something you have a stake in building. That is what this campaign is all about. Thank you. We will revive our missing national identity as Americans. And then once we do that, once we figure out who we really are, then we can stand up and take on anybody else on the global stage. Top of the list for me is Xi Jinping in Communist China. Okay, that is the number one threat that we face on the global stage. It's not anywhere else. And the problem today is that we depend on our enemy for our entire modern way of life. Ronald Reagan is one of my heroes, but I bear no illusions that the job of the next US president is even more difficult than the one Reagan faced because we never relied on the Soviet Union for the shoes on our feet, for the phones in our pockets now, for our modern way of life. Today we do. That is a problem. And Xi Jinping looks at us, China looks at us, the CCP looks at us and they laugh. They say that you don't know who you are. You're addicted to us. You're addicted to that fentanyl that we will pump across your southern border that will kill 200 of you every day, 50 times the number of people who died on 9/11 each year. You can't wean yourself off because you're addicted to us. You're addicted to digital fentanyl in the form of TikTok in your kids' hands, and you're not going to do a thing about it. You're addicted to financial fentanyl in the form of the national debt that we provide you because you're addicted to it and you can't stop spending. So let me see you separate from us. That is what they believe about us. But we can do these things if we actually rediscover who we are. It's going to involve some sacrifices. I'll be very honest with you about that. But it's like my parents taught me. You can make that sacrifice. We can make that sacrifice if we know what we are sacrificing for. That is this thing we call America. You need to think on the time scales of history, not quarterly earnings reports and election cycles. A little more Churchill, a little less Chamberlain in our foreign policy. We can then do the hard things, abandon the climate cult that shackles the United States while leaving China untouched. Hold China accountable for unleashing hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic, using every financial lever we have available. Tell them that if you're affiliated with the CCP, that you will not buy land in this country, that you will not donate to a university in this country, and that we will ban most U.S. businesses from doing business in China until the CCP falls or reforms its behaviors. We can do these things if we figure out who we really are. I grew up into a generation, the last 10, 20 years in this country, where we celebrated our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really just the same. All of us as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this whole ball game into motion 250 years ago. I believe it deep in my bones that those ideals still exist. I believe we together can revive them. It's not going to happen automatically. I think we can celebrate our diversity. It can be a beautiful thing, make no mistake. But there's nothing to it unless there's something greater that binds us together across that diversity. Looking at the audience tonight, I see a couple different shades of melanin. I brought one, so that's, happy to have done my part. A couple different genders out there. 2 of them, to be precise. That's good. We're diverse. But without something greater that unites us, think about it with me. We're really just a different looking group of 2-legged higher mammals with a bunch of different shades of melanin walking some geographic space that we call a country, doing what our iPhones told us to do on a given day. That's not America. America is a vision of what that place can be. A vision that brought together a divided, diverse, headstrong group of people 250 years ago. E pluribus unum, we say for a reason. From many, one. That is the dream that won the American Revolution. That is the dream that reunited us after the Civil War. That is the dream that won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is the dream that still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and grievance and victimhood, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. And I promise you this, that is what we together will revive to save this great nation. Thank you all. God bless your families. God bless our country. God bless our United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Take some questions.
Okay. We'd like to take a couple questions from the audience. I think, Kelly, do you have the microphone? Where are you at? Way back there. Okay, go ahead. Mike, go ahead.
We've got a first question from a young conservative tonight.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for staying quite a while in Iowa, so we really appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Paige Glassnap, and I am with BecomeTheirVoice.org. And my question is, the fentanyl crisis and the decline in mental health in our country continue to be an issue. The stigma, along with the lack of understanding and correlation between the two, makes it difficult to get people to listen. Many don't understand the magnitude of the problem or even realize there's an issue. What would you do to help bring light to this growing epidemic to help prevent these unnecessary deaths?
Thank you. So we are, when we're traveling this country, that is such an important question. It is a symptom of the deeper cancer, but it's a big one. We're meeting with, it's probably the most difficult part of the campaign for me, but we're doing it. We're doing it tomorrow, actually, here in Iowa. We did it a few weeks ago in New Hampshire. We're meeting parents of children who were lost to fentanyl. And one of the things I've learned from many of them is I've stopped calling it fentanyl overdoses, because many of those kids, at least the ones I've been meeting, they didn't overdose. They were poisoned. They thought they were taking something else. So don't call it, you didn't do that, but I did that. I used to call it fentanyl overdoses. It's fentanyl poisoning. It's a modern opium war that China has declared on the United States. The sad part about this is intentional. This is not some accident. It is coming of all places from, and I'm not making this up, Wuhan, China, to the Mexican drug cartels that are pumping it up across our southern border. So I refuse to be a passive bystander watching that happen with 100,000, close to 100,000 Americans a year, dying of fentanyl poisoning. So I've said that not only will we use the military to secure our own southern border, we will go further. If we can use our military to take out bin Laden or al-Zawahiri or Soleimani or ISIS somewhere else in some other part of the world, then we are ready to use our military to annihilate the Mexican drug cartels south of our own border. That is what it means to be an American. We solve that problem. And then there was a second part to your question, which I can't skip. My libertarian friends will tell me this, and that's good. They have a good point here. There's a demand side to this too. That's the mental health crisis in our country. Here we just got to take the partisan shackles off. I don't know if what I'm about to tell you or what I just told you, I don't know if that's a Republican idea or a Democrat idea. I could care less. It is an American idea for how we actually protect Americans. Here's another one for you. If you're not old enough to smoke an addictive cigarette by the age of 18, if you're not old enough to have an addictive drink of alcohol by the age of 21, then I don't believe you should be old enough to use TikTok or another addictive social media product by the age of 14 or 15 or 16 either. 16 and under, we're done with it. In the same way we regulate cigarettes. So we got to wake up. It's not 1980 anymore. We're going to wake up to the unique challenges we face in the year 2023, and we're going to solve them one way or another. I thank you for that question.
Very good. All right. Anybody else? Next question. Back in the back. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ian Grubb. I'm a Des Moines metro area resident. And my question is in regards to the TikTok ban, Restrict Act, and I'd say broadly just more technological advancements like blockchain and crypto. It seems like there's a disconnect in the legislators that we have in office who do not, when you say CBDCs or blockchain or crypto or the TikTok ban, they have no clue what is actually being addressed. And so they instead will react with an overreach of legislation to the point where it creates a dangerous potential consequence, like with the TikTok ban, potentially creating more restriction that puts too much control in the hands of the government. So what are your thoughts?
Great point. So I want to be really clear. I'm against the Restrict Act. I don't like TikTok. My focus is on addictive properties amongst young Americans because it's completely inconsistent to say what we do about cigarettes without actually looking at the actual harm that TikTok or products like it, it's not just TikTok, have on 12 and 13-year-olds who use it. However, we can't react to this in the way we created a corrupt national security state in the wake of 9/11. A bad thing happens, we need to deal with it. We're not going to use that as an excuse to create more bad things here at home. So despite Republican support for it, I'm steadfastly against the Restrict Act. That's where I'm at on that. Now, you brought up CBDCs. Unless people clamor for it, I'm not going to give my CBDC speech here tonight, although we can if a few more of you ask about it. I'm dead set against CBDCs, but it raises a broader point. We live in a moment when the threats to liberty are complex. They don't show up in the same forms they did back in 1980. It's like Dorothy might have said to Toto, right? We're not in 1980 anymore. And I think that the way we revive Reagan's spirit today is not by just reciting the slogans, but by channeling the spirit of how we protect human beings from government overreach, even if it's done through the back door. Deputizing private companies or currencies to get done through the back door what government couldn't get done through the front door. And I think it's why it's really important to have the next president in the White House I think there are moments in our history where it's okay to have somebody who's an implementer, right? Somebody else can write the books, the Heritage Foundation or whoever can put a binder on their desk and then they just go implement. This is not one of those moments. The moment we live in today is the person who's implementing needs to be more than a billiard ball. Needs to be somebody who's doing the aiming and understands why we're going through the motions. If you don't do that, then you get the Restrict Act. And so that, bluntly, is why I'm in this race. It is why I am running for president of the United States. I didn't think I was going to do that. This ripe age of 37, there's better ways of raising our kids than doing what we're doing now. But I think it is so important that whoever it is, if it's me, if it's somebody else, the thing I will, and I know you guys can do it because I've been traveling around your state, and you guys have a sixth sense for this. Whoever it is you put in that White House, make sure it is somebody who has a first personal, bone-deep understanding and conviction in why they're doing what they're doing. And I trust you, Iowans. I trust you to tell the difference between somebody who's actually telling you what they believe versus somebody who's telling you what their handlers told them to say, because the handlers are the one that give you things like the Restrict Act. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Looks like we have one more question back here. Hey, and where are the cards? Do we know who's asking questions? Do you need, go ahead, back there.
I don't know where they are.
No, I promise I
Forgot
didn't
them.
give this to him beforehand. But as the Fed continues to raise interest rates to try and combat inflation, if you were to be in the White House, what were you going to do to strengthen the U.S. dollar? Is it cutting spending? What is it?
Sure. So listen, there's something, again, in the spirit of moving beyond just Republican, Democrat, boring stuff, right? Democrats say we need to raise taxes to address the national debt. Republicans say we need to cut spending. There's a third way, folks. It's as though we've forgotten it. GDP growth, economic growth in America. This is doable. We can actually do it. We're growing at 1-point-something% now. For most of our national history, we grew at over 4%. If we're at over 3%, all of other problems, most of them certainly melt away. So how do we get there? It's actually pretty simple. First thing is you unleash the U.S. energy sector. It's not that hard. I'm going to use some foul language. You're going to excuse me for it, but I'm going to say it. You got to drill, frack, burn coal, and embrace nuclear. There, I said it, okay? That's the first thing you do for GDP growth. Second thing you do is you put people back to work because we have an epidemic of government-created laziness in this country. We can fix that. Get workers back in the economy. And then the third thing you do is what you asked about. You put the Federal Reserve back in its place. Okay, the Federal Reserve has been trying to play God for far too long, the last 25 years in this country, trying to hit two targets with one arrow, inflation and unemployment. They've done a disastrous job of both. Okay, so I'm debating how much detail I want to go into, but basically they've caused a lot of the financial crises. We've had 2008, 2023. They treat wage growth as a leading indicator of inflation when in fact anybody who runs a business knows that wages are often the last thing to go up, which means they tighten monetary policy right into a downturn in the business cycle, which gives us financial crises that then result in bailouts. We saw it in 2008, we're seeing it again now. What's the problem? You got 22,000 people that show up to work. They find things to do that they shouldn't have been doing. So the first thing I'll do as US president is a 90+% headcount reduction at the US Federal Reserve, and then put them back in place to do one thing: stabilize the US dollar as a unit of measurement, period. If the number of minutes in an hour varied, none of us would be here at time. We'd be walking in and out, bumping into each other. Well, when the dollar is as volatile as it is, you don't get to the best investments when the dollar is that volatile. You should not know. Maybe I should if I'm president, but you should not know the name of who sits in the chair of the U.S. Chairman of the Federal Reserve. It should be somebody who's literally restoring a unit of measurement. And those three things, unshackling U.S. energy, putting the Fed back in its place, and putting people back to work, I think gets us to 5+% GDP growth in this country, and then we have something to be proud of. Thank you.
All right, we got one more back here. Go ahead.
Hi, I was going to ask, what will you do about the rule of law when we have three-letter agencies operating in a double standard, protecting individuals such as Joe Biden and Dr. Fauci, and in other senses, prosecuting political opponents?
So I think justice is blind and ought to be blind. Today it is not. The blindfold is off, and it looks at your political partisanship, whether it's through the IRS, whether it's through the FBI, whether it's through the DOJ. These have become politicized institutions. So you don't get to go back in time and fix that, except there's one little exception for that. As a US president, in one narrow sense, you do. So I have my list of pardons that I'm gonna make on day one. And my definition of who I'll pardon, I don't care if they're left or right, if you're the target of a politicized prosecution, by which I mean if somebody else for doing the same thing under similar circumstances was not prosecuted because of their political beliefs, then you will get a pardon. Not all of these are Republicans. Julian Assange is on my list. Donald Trump is on my list. Think about Douglas Mackey is on my list. I don't know if you all know who that is. Peaceful January 6th protesters who were denied due process rights are on my list. I will not apologize for that. But that's going backwards. How do we fix it going forward? So I said we would shut down the U.S. Department of Education. That one doesn't come back. But I think when you have a bureaucracy that becomes so hardened, so toxic, so ossified in its structure, you can't reform it top down. You also have still one choice left: you shut it down. Which is why I said that I would shut down the FBI as it exists today. And that's controversial. But think about it, it's not that hard when you think about it with me. At the local level, you've got the prosecutor and you've got the police. There's no in between. One does the investigations and the arrests, the other does the prosecutions. At the federal level, we've got the US Marshals, who are like the police, and you've got the DOJ. But then you have J. Edgar Hoover's FBI sitting in between. It is still the J. Edgar Hoover building of the FBI that they walk into. So I think we have to be willing to do the hard thing, to think on the timescales of history, move the people we need under the DOJ, but then you have an administrative agency that shouldn't have existed. You then shut that down. And then you take a look at the ATF, which if just doing the background checks, you can put that under the same DOJ. You don't need that three-letter alphabet soup existing either. It's not just about the Department of Justice, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, hostile to nuclear energy. And so if there's one thing you hold me to domestically, you put me in that White House, you can expect two things of me, one at home and one abroad. The thing at home is by the time I'm done in January 2033, okay? I'll have a few more wrinkles and some gray hair and be a little more tired and all of that. But the thing I can promise you this is that we will have 3 branches of government again in this country, not 4, and that we will have declared independence from our top enemy, that is communist China. Those 2 things, we have economic growth that follows. We're then in good shape, and I want you to hold my feet to that fire. That is what I expect to do.
I'll tell you what, we've got some older folks here that may need, just the way they were looking, may need a break, but
Okay.
could we do one more question?
Let's do one more question, and I'll wrap it up
Where
with the
you at?
closing.
The
Yeah.
microphone. Anybody have one more question? Okay, hand it up there. Go ahead.
He had the Constitution. I wanted to.
Oh, go ahead. We got one right down here. Go ahead. Want to shout it, and I'll repeat it. We'll take one more down front here.
Thanks for being here. Lots of great ideas. I share your concern about the southern border, but I'm retired U.S. Navy. I have bigger concerns with the Russian aggression in Ukraine and also the potential of China's aggression vis-a-vis Taiwan. If you were president, what would you do about those 2 issues?
Great question. So I think the number one takeaway from the Russia-Ukraine disaster is that if we had been energy self-sufficient and a net exporter of energy, then Vladimir Putin would never have gone for Ukraine. Because they have the leverage. I sometimes joke that ESG, Governor Reynolds brought it up, stands for export Soviet gas, because that's actually the effect that it's had on global markets. So that's the number one takeaway there. I think about the more important one is actually Taiwan. Because unlike Ukraine, we depend on Taiwan for our modern way of life. The little semiconductors that power the chips in our phones, the lights, the fan that's spinning up there up high, those come from a tiny island nation off the southeast coast of China. And here's the tough job for the next president. How do we secure our way of life without actually going to war with China. I've thought a lot about this. I've been an exchange student in China twice. I've done business in China before I started my next business, after which I said we will never do business in China when I started Strive. So I understand these issues. I've been studying them for a long time. Here's what I think. There are two things we can do. First thing is, I'll tell you what I said to the NRA when I spoke to them. Take that Second Amendment from that Constitution and export it. We put a gun in every Taiwanese household, train them how to use it. Xi Jinping will think twice before he goes for that island. Abandon our divest to invest program. We're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. I think that's a bad idea because we're going to hit a low point in 2027. Xi Jinping is waiting for that. And then I think most importantly, we build up our own semiconductor supply chain here at home. And over the next few years, while we deter him, then we're semiconductor self-sufficient here at home. They have less of an incentive to even take the risk of doing it because we can actually supply ourselves something that we should have done long ago in this country. Thank you for that question. That's a real problem the next U.S. president faces. I appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Vivek will be...
I just want to wrap with one comment. I feel like we ended on a serious note
absolutely,
there.
yeah.
I mean, that's dour stuff, but it's real stuff.
I'd love a wrap-up comment. I would love one.
I promised everybody we weren't going to be angry tonight, so... Look, there's going to be serious stuff on the desk of the next president, but I just want to ask you guys to do something with me tonight as you leave, right? As you go back and think about what we talked about today. The bipartisan consensus in this country right now is that we are a nation in decline. That is why we debate tax increases versus spending cuts. We all assume that we're like Rome, in the decline of the Roman Empire. Or even worse, that we might be like Carthage, which Rome lasted a couple thousand years, Carthage didn't. And for a while, I felt that way too. Even 2 years ago, thank you for having that second book of mine, Nation of Victory. I was in bad mood when I wrote that book, okay? That whole book was about how we're like Rome, actually. So I've been at my place of doubt. I'm now at my place of conviction, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. That I don't believe that we actually have to be in a national decline. I don't think we have to be Rome. I don't think we have to be Carthage. I actually think we're just a little young, going through our own version of adolescence, figuring out who we're really going to be when we grow up. I told you at the beginning we're in the middle of a national identity crisis. We are, but you go through an identity crisis when you're going through adolescence. We've all done it. I'm not the only person here who's young, millennial president. We're all a little young. Our country is young. And when you view it that way, it just becomes obvious that our best days, actually, truly, not in some politician-y kind of way, but in an actually just true way, it becomes obvious that our best days are actually still truly ahead of us, that we're not and don't have to be a nation in decline. We may still yet be a nation in our ascent. We may be not even anywhere close to the mountaintop. We might just be at base camp. That's where it feels like to me we are, but it's not going to happen automatically. It's not going to be somebody coming from on high from the White House or for the governor's mansion or anywhere else to save us. If we are going to be saved, it is going to be because we save ourselves as citizens. And that is what I ask you to do. It's not about me. It's not being done by me. It's not being done by you. It's being done through us. That liberates us to see that we have yet ways to go before we get to that mountaintop. Reject it anytime somebody tells you we're a nation in decline. And the next time you see a young person in this country, I'm so happy to see young kids in this audience tonight, you tell them that we are still the nation where no matter who you are or where your parents came from or what your skin color is, that you can achieve anything you ever want in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, and your own dedication, and that, you know what, that you're free to speak your mind at every step of the way too. That is the new American dream. That is what we are running to, and that is what will make us a great nation yet again. Thank you all. God bless you.
Vivek,
God bless our country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vivek Ramaswamy, nice job.
Thank you.
Now, before you leave, there's a table out there that has hats and T-shirts. I think there's still a few left, and you're going to head out and shake a few hands. Absolutely. Enjoy tonight. Thank you on behalf of the Dallas County Republican Party and for the state of Iowa Republican Party. Thanks to Governor Reynolds and the entire group for coming today. Have a great night. Drive safely, and we will see you soon.